The presidential order at the heart of Trump versus Hawaii is Proclamation 9645, which the president issued on September 24th, 2017, to replace the March 6 order, which was scheduled to expire. And Proclamation 9645 restricts travel to the United States by nationals of 8 countries. And the question is whether or not the president's order violates either the Constitution or federal law. This proclamation is a little bit different from some of the ones that came before in a couple of respects. The first is just in terms of the duration. Under the March 6 order, the agencies that regulate security and immigration were supposed to conduct an extensive process to look at the vetting procedures that United States officials use to decide whether or not someone can come to the United States. The September 24th order, the Proclamation 9645, in essence says, we conducted that review. It was extensive, it was detailed, and our vetting procedures are greatly improved, but we found that they continue to be deficient, that we're not getting enough information from 8 countries: Libya, Iran, Syria, Somalia, Yemen, and then North Korea, Venezuela, and Chad. And so we are going to continue to restrict travel to the United States from those countries. This proclamation is indefinite. The other way that this proclamation is different from the earlier proclamations is which countries it affects. The March 6 proclamation affected 6 countries, all of which were Muslim majority countries. 5 of those 6 countries are still on the list of nations whose nationals have restricted travel, but it added 3 more: North Korea and Venezuela, neither of which is a Muslim majority country, and Chad, which has a Muslim population that is a majority, but just barely. The Trump administration's argument is that this falls squarely within the president's authority under the immigration laws. Congress has primary authority to regulate immigration, but they've delegated some of that authority to the president precisely because the president is able to act quickly to address threats to national security. I think that there is a sense among the Trump administration that even though it's been now 17 years since September 11th, this is a bit of an emergency situation. Certainly the president's remarks when he first called for a ban on Muslims coming to the United States were in response to a terrorist incident. And there's a sense that there is a constant threat and that the agencies that are deciding whether or not to admit someone to the United States need to make sure that they have the kind of information that they need to accurately assess whether someone is a threat to the security of the United States. And the September 24th order reflects the conclusion that, at least for these countries, we're not yet getting the kind of information that we need to be able to make that decision accurately with any confidence. I think that Hawaii's best argument is the idea that this is old wine in new bottles, that the Trump administration may have tried to dress this up as something that was not targeting Muslim majority countries. You can look at the face of this proclamation and sure, they're not all necessarily Muslim countries, but if you look at the whole history of the different executive orders, then this is clearly something that's intended to target Muslims, as some of the president's comments and tweets in the past have suggested. Whether or not there's any precedent for looking at the words of a candidate or even the words of a president to determine the outcome of a case is, I think, something that's going to be debated. As a general rule, courts, and particularly the Supreme Court, want to just look at the face of an order. They don't want to try to get into the heads of whoever drafted the order to figure out what may have actually been going on. They want to look at the text, whether that's the Constitution or a statute or an executive order. What the challengers are saying is that that may generally be the case, but when you've got this kind of really extreme animus, then you need to go behind the words of the statute or the order to what the actual motivation was. This is a case that really, I think in many ways, captures a lot of the debate that is going on in the United States right now, and that we saw during the 2016 presidential elections. Whatever the Supreme Court decides in this case isn't going to resolve the debate, but it will say a lot about the president's powers to regulate immigration and national security.